If you've ever built an app with Delphi for Android, you know the feeling. You know our old nemesis, the startup time. Ugh, that agonizing wait that just felt like forever. But what if I told you that war is finally over and we won? Today, we're going to break down exactly how modern Delphi has completely conquered this problem for good.
All right, here's our game plan. We'll start by digging into the root of the problem, the real enemy. Then, we'll take a trip back to the wild era of hacks and workarounds. After that, we'll see how a huge shift from Android changed all the rules, leading us to the elegant solution we have today and the whole modern ecosystem that makes our lives so much easier. Sound good? Let's get into it.
So, to really appreciate the solution, we've got to get our hands dirty and understand the problem. What was actually going on under the hood during that super frustrating delay?
I mean, I bet any developer who's been in the trenches with this knows the answer in a heartbeat. It's one of those things that just drives you crazy, right? It creates a terrible first impression for the user, and for the longest time, there just wasn't a clean way to solve it in the Delphi world.
Yep, that's the one, the dreaded blank white screen. It's the classic sign of what's called a cold start. That's the time it takes for your app to fire up from scratch. And for Delphi apps, this was a real persistent headache that, let's be honest, gave them a totally undeserved reputation for being slow. Now, here's the most important part to understand. That delay was not your fault. It wasn't your app's code. Before the very first line of your Delphi code could even think about running, Android had to do all this heavy lifting in the background. It has to unpack the native library, fire up the JNI bridge, which is basically the universal translator between Delphi's native world and Android's Java world, and then it has to launch the entire FireMonkey engine. All of that work had to happen first, and that's what gave us that awful white screen. Of course, if there's one thing we know about the Delphi community, it's that they are incredibly resourceful. Faced with this problem, they weren't just going to sit on their hands. And so began what I like to call the era of hacks. These solutions were, well, they were brilliant, but man, were they complicated. Just look at this list. I'm getting tired just reading it. You had to dive in and write custom Java, wrestle with command line tools, and then, the scariest part, you had to manually merge your Dex file with Delphi's. If you made one tiny slip up there, one little mistake, poof, the whole build would just break. It was an incredibly fragile process. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. It's from Brian Long, one of the wizards who documented these crazy techniques, and it sums it all up perfectly. All of that blood, sweat, and tears for something so basic, something every user just expects to work seamlessly. It was insane. And then, right when the community was getting pretty good at these complex workarounds, the entire game changed. And look, to be fair, these manual solutions, for all their complexity, they did work. They managed to show a custom splash screen while the Delphi engine loaded up behind the scenes. But here's the turning point. When Android 12 came along, Google basically said, okay, that's enough of the Wild West, and they introduced a new standard and, this is the key part, mandatory splash screen API. Overnight, almost all of those clever hacks became obsolete. And you really gotta get this. It wasn't just another option. The new API became the only correct way to handle splash screens. Google essentially took control, telling us, look, from now on, I, the operating system, am in charge of the splash screen. Your app just needs to tell me when it's ready for the handoff. So this huge change forced everyone back to the drawing board. We needed a new solution, one that played by these new rules and could finally fix Delphi's startup problem in a clean, elegant way. The challenge now wasn't just about throwing an image on the screen. It was about perfectly synchronizing that handoff from the system's splash screen to our fully loaded FireMonkey app. So after that entire history of complex hacks, fragile builds, and command line nightmares, what was the big answer? It all came down to this: one single, incredibly powerful method that changed absolutely everything. The beauty of this is its simplicity. Instead of guessing with timers, we just give the system a simple condition. We basically say, hey Android, keep your splash screen showing as long as this little flag of mine is true. Meanwhile, in the background, Delphi is doing its thing, loading, painting, getting the main form ready, and only when everything is 100% ready to go, we flip that flag to false. The result? A perfect, flicker-free, buttery smooth transition. It's just flawless. All right, so the startup problem is solved. The first impression is now top-notch. But you know what other nightmare we had to deal with? Managing all the graphics, especially those blessed app icons. The difference here is just night and day. It's not even close. Before, you could literally spend hours in Photoshop manually resizing and exporting dozens and dozens of PNG files for every single screen density out there. It was tedious, soul-crushing work. Now, with the tools in modern Delphi, you just need one vector file, a single SVG. This chart says it all. We went from a manual, hours-long process to an automated wizard that gets it done in minutes. And it's not just faster. The end result is better, giving you modern, adaptive icons that look amazing on every Android device. And now for the last piece of this incredible puzzle. This isn't just about startup. It's about how your app looks, feels, and performs all the time. The integration of Skia as the default graphics engine is a total game changer. We're talking about the same library that powers Google Chrome and Android itself. This means our FireMonkey apps are now using truly world-class tech. And the benefits are real things you can see and feel. You get superior performance, especially with the Vulkan backend. The UI quality is just visibly better, and, so important on mobile, it's more energy efficient. Your app feels faster and uses less battery. It's a massive win.
So when you put it all together, the new Android API, the smart tools built into the Delphi IDE, and the powerful Skia engine, this wasn't just a patch. This combination completely eliminated one of the biggest, most frustrating obstacles that held Delphi back on Android for years. So this is the trifecta, the winning combination. You have Android's standard API, Delphi's super smart tools that do the heavy lifting for you, and the raw power of the Skia graphics engine. Together, they've kicked the door open to a whole new chapter for Delphi on Android. It's a fundamental shift in what's possible. So, with our performance and user experience now right up there with fully native apps, the whole conversation has changed. We're no longer wasting our time asking, how do we fix this annoying startup problem? The question we get to ask now is something way more exciting. With all these old roadblocks gone and all this new power right at your fingertips, what incredible things are you going to build? That's the real question now.